Hello and welcome to episode 18 of Election Countdown. I am joined today by the LGBT plus committee, not society. I'll have to edit it. I have put society in there, put committee. Sorry.
Don't worry.
I'm joined today by Cian.
Hi.
And Georgina.
Hello.
They're going to tell me about their society and what they do on campus and their role. So, what do you do?
The LGBT plus committee are one of 7 representative committees, basically providing a sort of voice and support system for minority of some description students. The other ones include like women, mature students, international students, BME students, disabled, postgrad. And if I was to kind of summarise it as briefly as I could, I'd say our 3 main objectives, I think looking after the welfare of LGBT plus students, campaigning for the rights of LGBT plus students, both within the LGBT plus community and within the wider student community. And then thirdly, running events and setting up a social space for LGBT plus students to mingle.
Pretty much summarises it really.
You said the nail on the head.
He has it written there. It's almost like he wrote it down before or something.
I haven't actually.
So you're available to all LGBT plus people within the university, but they don't necessarily have to join.
Of course they don't. Yeah.
Well, as a rep committee, the thing about us is we don't have sign-ups. So a big misconception. I even thought myself, I started getting involved in the LGBT plus lounge down at level 2 in the finance corridor back around maybe a year and a few months ago. And it wasn't for at least 2 or 3 months when someone said something about a social, and I was like, well, I can't go, I'm not a part of the society, that they were like, don't be daft, you don't have to sign up, like, you're LGBT. And to be part of the LGBT plus community kind of is a membership. I don't think there's really a formal sign up. So whether people choose to engage with the events we run and the campaigns we do is up to them, or whether they want to take up our support network in terms of welfare. But it is open to all. There's no sort of you're not allowed here vibe about it.
Yeah. And even if you don't want anything to do with us, we're still here to try our best to represent you.
Cool. What kind of issues do you deal with on campus?
I'd say the most successful campaign, this is my first year on the LGBT plus committee, as of a few weeks ago, same for Georgina. When we were in our first year, so last academic year, the chair, Gemma, amazing person, she did a lot of work campaigning for gender neutral toilets, which you'll see by the Nelson Mandela Auditorium, and I believe there's some in the Diamond as well.
Some in the Diamond, yeah.
Which people have mixed opinions on, but I can honestly say they do so much good for students. They are such a valuable and important asset, and it's a testament to this union and how progressive it is that we have them. So I think that's the most important campaign I can think of. There's always something for National Coming Out Day as well. This year I think we have a few things in the mix. I know that our Bi Plus rep Daniel, cheeky cough, wants to do a big campaign on bi-erasure within the LGBT plus community, so that'll be quite focused at the people that already are involved with our sort of network rather than an external campaign. So it kind of is, we do some stuff within targeted LGBT and wider community of students.
Just plug myself for a bit. As the Women's Welfare Officer, I want to run some women's only events, because at the moment the society is quite heavily dominated by cis males, so I'd like to change that. Not necessarily get rid of the representation. I don't mean it like that. I mean get more women involved in the society.
Do you meet much resistance to change from individuals or from...
Yeah, I think with student politics there's always going to be voices that stick around, and there's going to be a conflict between different people, but at the end of the day, we all have something in common. And while people might be led to different stances through their different journeys of being queer, just as the word that kind of summarises the LGBT, the B, the T, and the plus, we all have something in common. And I think on a very basic level, we are all sort of working towards the same thing, and that's kind of everyone being accepted and included.
And in the kind of modern era now, particularly recently, there's been a kind of expanding, not labels, but ways people identify as LGBT plus. Is it a case of, it's important for people to be able to explore themselves and for there to, because it's no longer just black and white anymore, it's no longer gay, bisexual and straight. There are different genders and different sexualities on the spectrum now.
Yeah, I'd say even going back 100 years ago, there was research, like, not necessarily with the best evidence at the time, but like, as it can, I think his name was, about like sexuality, being an entire spectrum. And for some people who identify as gay or bisexual, that's something they've always known. For me, I've always known. But for other people, that's something that they come around to gradually and they realise, and like I know people that came to university that identified as straight, and I'm like, actually maybe I'm bi, and now can say a year later, I'm just gay, like, I don't want anything to do with them.
Not that it's always used as a stepping stone.
Not that bisexuality is a stepping stone at all. I think with gender, that's kind of the next that we're working towards, because I think people are starting to realise that sexuality is somewhat fluid. Gender, I think, because we have such little representation of trans plus people within the media, we have the likes of like someone like Caitlyn Jenner who has the money and the resources to kind of go off the face of the earth for a few months and then come back with all the medical, legal, physical changes to go from presenting as a man to presenting as a woman, and really being trans isn't that quick. It's not that sort of thing. Being trans, I think, transitioning as such, in inverted commas, is such an ongoing process, and people might not realise that, so in that sense as well.
And obviously people have so many difficulties with being able to do it, like various like legal, medical, like family reasons. It's not just as quick as like it's been made out to be.
So it's kind of fighting against transphobia, the new kind of stepping stone.
Because there are some people within the LGBT plus community who don't necessarily respect the fact that like things are a lot harder for trans plus people than for people who are homosexual. But in answer to that, I would say like where we are fortunate enough that in the 1950s, like onwards, gay people were fighting for like the rights that we have now. Whereas I would say that trans plus people are still at that point where we were in the 50s, like, which is something that our generation has never had to experience.
Yeah, I definitely would say that. Also, you have to bear in mind that it was particularly trans women of colour that fought so much for LGBT plus rights, and yet it was the cisgendered gay white community that ended up getting these rights, and that's a part of history that completely gets
not
adjusted, selective memory. And I think working towards trans rights is the next step. That's not to say that gay rights and bi rights are like the fight's over. There's definitely work to be done, but I don't have the same fear of getting beaten up when I go into a toilet that a trans person might do. And I think that it's really important that we work on it. I think for any LGBT plus person, even if you identify as cisgender, you should know what it's like to be different, and surely that should be enough to fight for someone else's rights.
So it's more important for the majority of people to fully understand what's going on or to simply accept. Because someone like me, I struggle to define, I struggle to define things like pansexuality. I don't know what it is, but if anyone says, "Oh, I'm pansexual," I'm going to accept them. I'm not going to, actively say anything against them. Do you think it's more important for people to understand, therefore, or just accept?
Well, I feel like it doesn't really take very long to like Google a list of genders and sexualities and like find out for yourself. I don't really think it's very time consuming or hard to do that on a basic level. Like if you obviously read a summary of it on Google, that obviously is in no way representative of somebody's entire life experience, but that would help you with the definitions. But I think for a lot of people, acceptance does come from understanding, but I guess if you can't understand or struggle to like get it through your head, then acceptance is like the base of what you can and should
Yeah,
do.
everyone should really, as long as people aren't being hateful towards anyone else, everyone should be accepted. Understanding seems like quite an obvious word, but it's actually quite complex, because there's a difference between understanding what something means and understanding what that experience is like. And I think a lot of people would argue that, like, as a white person, I can't really understand the issues that BME people face, but that doesn't mean I can't look into it, do my research.
And stand beside them.
Yeah, exactly, and work with them and fight for their rights. But I understand when, we should probably not use the word understand in that context, I get it when someone might say that they don't understand what it's like to be gay if they're straight, because they're straight, like, they won't know, they won't have the experience of being gay, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't, like, work towards including it.
And do you think university is the best place for people to explore themselves and to be open about who they are? Because people often see university as kind of this progressive bubble.
Yeah, I think we somewhat turn into a bit of utopia. There's definitely issues with LGBT plus phobia within the university. That's definitely something that needs work on. That's not like a journey that's finished. That's not a fight that's finished. But I would say a lot of the people I know that have come to university have found it easier to express their LGBT plusness at university. Obviously, we've got international students, some of whom are coming from countries where being gay is like not even, like, it's not even something we would consider being accepted. It's just off the cards completely. And so coming here, it is progressive, and like university, as you said, is a progressive place, and if you want to express yourself, it's one of the best times you're going to have, but we can't be deluded into thinking that everything's right with it, because there's definitely a lot of work to go.
To an extent, like, coming to uni is definitely like a big step away from like the high school mentality of like gossiping about everything to do with everybody. Like for me, for example, like, I didn't come out until I came to uni, which is weird to think. Here I am now on the internet talking about being gay, but come a long way.
But as a kind of political movement, is LGBT plus very much a modern phenomena that the youth have embraced, or does this go all the way back to the 1960s when they legalised homosexuality?
We've always existed. The gays have definitely always existed. Like, read Sappho Babes. Like, we've always been around, but we've just been repressed, like washed out of history. They've pretended not to exist. Like, when gay male sex was outlawed, like gay female sex wasn't even outlawed because people just thought it was too ridiculous to ever happen. Nobody thought it was a thing.
Well, it was handed to Queen Victoria and she refused to believe anyone.
Exactly. So, like, do you know what I mean?
It was 1990, just about a week ago, the anniversary of the National Health Organisation taking homosexuality off a list of mental disorders. Like, it in some ways is more modern than you think, but also when you say, like, is it young people embracing stuff, I would really like to point out, like, that the pioneers of LGBT plus rights came 40 years ago. Like, we would not be able to live as comfortably as we are, and as much as we like to think that we're all progressive as a generation, a lot of that is because we've been educated by people from the generation before us who fought to normalise and fought to, like, get these rights in place. So I definitely think, like, we might be on a wide level more progressive as a generation than the generation before us, but it's the hard work really came 4 years ago.
And we can only really talk about what we know of our society, because obviously there are so many societies around and cultures around the world that are completely not accepting still, regardless of whether it's 2017 or not.
Chechnya.
But do you think the political left is still kind of not the catalyst, but what brings about social change in society? Do you think the left still brings about social change when it comes to LGBT plus rights, or with the
it's back.
It's back.
Okay, we're back.
Well, to answer the first part of the question, I would argue that yes, the left is still incredibly important in that. To theorise it a bit, I think it is a lot easier to understand the position of somebody who's not emancipated, not liberated, from the perspective of somebody else who's also not liberated and emancipated. So like, as the left seems to align with like the working class struggle for like liberation and freedom, then you've got a kind of common goal with somebody else that kind of like brings you together in unity of like we're all fighting for like the same thing essentially. Yes, the left is still very important. And what was the second part of the question?
Does this now cross political boundaries, left to right? Is this now kind of, are you progressive or are you not? It doesn't matter if you're right or left.
Well, I mean, you say the Tories and gay marriage. Yeah, the Tories did, I guess, introduce gay marriage, but they probably wouldn't have done it unless they were in a coalition. And also a significantly larger number of Tory MPs, 136 of them voted against gay marriage, whereas only 22 Labour MPs voted against gay marriage. So still you can see there's a definite difference. And then only like 20 years before that we had Section 28 still existing, thanks Thatcher.
Yeah, we did have a long conversation about crossing political boundaries before we began, but screw the SU. That's my opinion.
Oh, that's not. We can't say that.
I'm going to be diplomatic and
I'm going to
not engage with that.
I am allowed to ask about election predictions. I was also going to ask about hate speech and hate crime, because there are a lot of people in society who say stupid things.
Don't we know it?
I asked the same thing of the feminist society. There's a lot of people who say stupid things but don't necessarily.
And then they get in the White House.
In what they say. But is it more important to call people out, or?
I have quite strong opinions on this. Let me get on my rant. I think that people who do face some form of oppression naturally build up an anger, and sometimes this anger comes across when they hear someone say something that they don't agree with, and that's how they approach it, with a level of aggression. And yeah, that's understandable, and it's not my place to say that they can or can't. My personal approach is I know that when I was into LGBT plus spaces, just a year ago in university, like going to the lounge and stuff, the people that I value most in my experience of being LGBT plus are the people who really calmly educated me and knew that I didn't know everything, and were fine that I didn't know everything, but just made sure to teach me. And that's something that I definitely carry across. And I think, especially now that we are on the committee, and like being chair myself, I think to an extent you do have a significant role on people, and I think it's so important to educate people. And for me, I really think educating people calmly, so long as you're able to, is the best way, because that person's likely to ask more questions going forward. And I think people need to ask more questions, because a lot of people will sit in a room and no one will understand something, but it just takes that one person who thinks they're really going to say it. And I don't know, I just know that I've had so many questions myself, and I'd look back now and things that seem obvious to me now, back a year ago, wouldn't have crossed my mind. So for me personally, I think you have to realise that people don't always come at things from bad intentions. Like, they just haven't been raised with it, especially coming to somewhere like university, being in a completely different mix of people. You're exposed to so many different cultures, and of course you're not going to know everything, so I think you should just really educate people.
So I do agree with you, but at the same time we must recognise that there's a difference between not knowing and wanting to learn and find out, and being ignorant. And,
oh yeah, definitely.
If you know you don't know about anything, about something or anything, then you can't make an opinion on it really. Like, there's no excuse for subtle homophobic comments, even if they come from a place of ignorance, because if you don't know about something, why are you commenting on it? But yeah, I do agree that education is the most important thing. Like,
if you gave me the choice between having a conversation with someone who knows nothing about LGBT plus culture and knows that they know nothing about LGBT plus culture, or someone who knows nothing but thinks they know everything.
And
I'd
refuses to be
much
educated.
I'd much rather talk to someone who's willing to like listen and learn, because I think a lot of the time, especially people who aren't from our community, there are people that are very happy to talk on LGBT plus issues, and the word ally gets thrown around a lot. So yeah, you're very right. Like there is a point, a threshold, and ignorance and wanting to learn.
So if you don't know, don't say stupid things.
Do you think?
But we will be nice.
Do you think there's See, I've noticed that if you come from a more working class background, things like LGBT plus rights are more kind of closed, whereas it's almost been kind of the middle class acceptance of LGBT plus rights, because people often say, oh, this kind of liberal elite that put forward rights of minorities, and that's often seen as, oh, these people are quite middle class, they live comfortable lives, but they're able to accept people who are different because of economic privilege, whereas people who are more working class tend to be more kind of close about these issues. Do you think there's an economic argument there?
What's the evidence for that? What's the evidence to suggest that working class people aren't as accepting of LGBT plus issues?
Well, take for example UKIP. They tend to have a higher turnout in places that are more white, working class, and economically left behind. Whereas LGBT plus issues have been kind of more embraced by the metropolitan inner city areas. It was the same with Donald Trump. Donald Trump was gaining more votes in areas that were more kind of white, working class, and eventually more right wing.
Well, I'd say there's obviously a lot of working class LGBT plus people, and I'm not a fan of UKIP, obviously. I don't know how much I can say.
I guess we can't express opinions, but if you want to guess what our opinions on UKIP
that's it.
Go ahead.
But while there are obviously members of UKIP and like politicians within UKIP that are very, very homophobic and have said absolutely awful things, I mean, the propaganda around like voting UKIP and like voting Leave and stuff like that kind of was so marketed towards working class people that, and you're not necessarily going to look into what like a specific politician has said about LGBT plus issues, or like look into what their manifesto says on LGBT plus issues, because you're just going to get that leaflet through your door to say you'll be better off if you vote us. So I don't really think that's a like very fair like tarnishing of the working class.
No, but I mean, there has been a kind of failure in terms of progressive politics and working class people.
I think also LGBT plus issues are more fashionable amongst like the middle class.
Yeah,
it's like the token gay friend.
Exactly,
I love the gays because
I love them coming to my dinner parties. Like, it's so nice to be a champagne socialist.
Exactly, and I think a lot of the
they've got more time on their hands as well to like say they like the gays.
Yeah, I think it might be somewhat of a middle class trend to take pride in being progressive, like in the sense that I said before, that a lot of people now would feel progressive for example, embracing gay rights. And again, I need to point out, I don't want it to sound like I'm not saying that gay rights, we've like finished the battle, we've not. But something that is within British society widely accepted, whereas anyone who was truly progressive would be fighting for the rights of trans plus people, in my opinion, and that's not to speak for all LGBT plus people at all. I do think there's somewhat of a trend, especially with gay rights, because a lot of these are gay rights rather than LGBT plus rights, and I think there's a distinguished fight to be made there.
And I think also we've talked a lot about education and how like coming to university has obviously helped us be ourselves more, and also to help educate other people. We've got to remember that even though our society is one of the most like more progressive, we still do have a class divide of people who are able to come to university, and the working class is still a lot less able to come to university, if you get what I'm saying there. So
Do you think the alt-right have become a problem in recent years?
They're a problem for everyone.
from Infowars to Paul Joseph Watson, who I learned actually came from the city. Do you think? Because I remember one rant. The guy on Infowars was saying that the water was turning him gay and was turning everyone else gay.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
And that the government was like,
can we get that water in the SU tablet?
But no, they are recent. Yeah.
Oh right, it's just a big problem really, aren't they? Is that, are we allowed to say that?
I think,
yeah,
as long as you're not party specific.
Well,
They're
the
not
alt-right
really
are just fascists.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. There's always going to be people like that.
Yeah.
Then.
It's just
Awesome.
old white people trying to make themselves feel better about themselves because they hate the world.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm not allowed to ask about political affiliation, but since we are election countdown, I can ask about predictions.
I think that Theresa May will be sticking around. Obviously, I'm not allowed to comment on whether or not that's in line with my desires. I do think that that's going to be the case. That being said, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this without expressing any personal preferences. Very subtle. I think that following Brexit, a lot of young people, on a general basis, seem to be more left-wing aligned. And I think, given that there's very poor turnout within young people voting, I think that has shot people into action somewhat. Hopefully, regardless of which party they vote for, I think I can say this, hopefully more young people will be voting this time as a result of that and by the upset. And given that young people are more left-wing aligned, there is a chance that one of the more left-wing parties could do better if this is the case and if more young people do vote. I don't know whether more young people will vote. I can't say that.
And also, how many old people vote? How many young people actually turn out to vote? Where in the country their constituencies lie? I don't know. Begrudgingly, I might have to say that who I think is going to win isn't necessarily who I want to win. And that's all I'll say.
Okay, well, tomorrow, hopefully, I will be standing around with a box in the SU, taking in a fake ballot box and what's it called? Poll. I'm taking a poll. I'm taking a poll in the SU, and we'll hopefully get an idea of what everyone in the SU is going to vote for.
If you go to the SU, it'll be like...
I wonder what the breakdown will be there. I think all Tories, all of them.
It'll be like Labour, 60%, like Green, like 20%.
There was a poll on Facebook that was asking everyone, what are you going to vote for in this election? Not a single Tory seat. Because it asks you to type in your...
young people as well.
Yeah, it asks you to type in your postcode and then vote for whichever
I saw that. It was like the live update of like how many people, and like no, it was like the whole country was red.
Well, this is my exact point. I think young people voting turnout will genuinely be the difference between one party and another. Realistically, I think it will have such a big impact because if it was just young people voting,
if it was no one over 50 voting, the entire map would be red.
Should we kill old people?
No.
I'm going to say no for now.
Sorry, I shouldn't have asked that while they're in an official capacity.
Well, to be fair, even if we weren't in an official capacity, I don't think we should kill people.
I mean, murdering, not sure how I feel about that.
I'm quite strong on my political beliefs, but I don't think murder's the answer.
Okay. Even in a revolutionary capacity?
No comment.
Okay. Right. Tomorrow I can't remember who I have on. I've got someone important, you know.
Selena important.
Yeah.
How dare you? First of all, how dare you?
Yes, you're important.
Did you say this yesterday? Did you say tomorrow I have on?
No, I have an important guest on every day. Except yesterday, in which I couldn't find someone, so I just did one with myself that was about the hustings and my thoughts. But yeah, we're going to have someone on tomorrow. Just as important as you guys.
I think you'll struggle to find them.
Okay. Right, well,
thank you.
this has been Election Countdown. Thank you, Georgina. Cian. Hi, guys. Sometimes I wave to camera if you don't have to.